So I wanted to start off by just doing a quick check-in. I already heard from Andrea that the morning practice today worked, but wanted to get a sense from you. How is the short practices working and how are things going so far?
Is that me? I think the short practice is a great idea. I Even if you just start with that, and as you say, you feel empowered to do more, or you have, you feel it kind of gets you going. I What's my point here? Yeah, the first day, I think I told you yesterday, but I struggled with the timing of it all. But I think that's important to be flexible, and I can turn that into like after the afternoon or early evening type of thing. Oh,
Yes, it's so important to figure out like how to fit it into your schedule, right? Yeah, super. Andrea, anything else you want to add?
I really like the short practice because I've found after our I think maybe even the retreat prior to the last one I did with you, really kind of going into my yoga space first thing in the morning and committing to, just 15 minutes, even just 15 minutes. And it's a habit. So it's something that I do. So I'm always looking for something, different or new. And it's kind of a good way to start my day. I do that and then I do my Duolingo and start my day.
What language are you learning?
Spanish.
Oh, fantastic. Good for
Mm.
you. So yeah, starting with a little bit of time just to make it doable and getting into the habit of it. That's great to hear. Kim, so great to see you and have you here today. We're just doing a check-in about how things are going. Have you tried any of the videos? How are they working?
Yeah. I've been noticing this thing that often comes up for me when I'm trying to start a new routine or maintain a routine, that I have this almost like an all or nothing attitude towards it, and something I've been working on for a long time. So I have it in my head that if I don't do all of it, then I can't do any of it, right? Because it's not going to be perfect, or it's not going to be whatever this expectation is. And so the past few days I've really been playing around with, what if I just did some of it? Like, even if this morning, for example, it's like it doesn't feel good for my body right now to want to do 15 minutes of yoga. But what if I did 7 minutes of meditation? Um, and I did that, and I was like, okay, well, I showed up for something, and yeah, so that's the thing that's been really standing out to me the past few days, is like just doing something, not
Mhm.
not attaching this like I have to do it all, I have to do it perfectly to it. And that's felt like it's created a bit more space in my
Mhm.
head and just like in my day to not feel like, yeah.
You know, Kim, that is a good indication that you have pitta in you. That's a very pitta quality. Um, and, I think it's wonderful to temper pitta with what's possible, what's doable. Let's just start. Just take the first step, right? So that's great. Hi, Monica. We are just doing a quick checking in about some of you received the packages, some of you have tried the videos. How are things going so far, and any things you'd like to share with the group? Monica?
Well, I'm here with all my shame because I've been having a terrible time. Uh, yeah, I'm not in retreat mode at all, and I double booked, so I've just been running around cleaning the house because I have company coming. And but I told myself I was going to show up, and that's my gift to myself today for this
Great,
Zoom. Yeah.
great, great. That's wonderful. So important to just take the first step and do what's possible and not try to do things perfectly. You know, um, I was I participate in an Ayurvedic cleanse twice a year. And I've never been able to do it 100%, but I've never gone in with that intention. I'm always like, okay, let's just see what small piece of it I can do. And what's amazing is that I can do somewhere between 20 and 60%, and I still get benefit. So I can really appreciate that it's okay not to participate to the full extent possible. And here we have Heidi. Hi, Heidi.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Sorry. Had trouble
That's,
signing in.
that's okay. Just want to check in, Heidi. Last night you mentioned you wanted to do legs up the wall and a restorative pose. Did you end up doing that? And how did that feel?
I did it. It was great. And I woke up this morning at 7 a.m.
Wow.
and I did the meditation and it was great.
Amazing. I'm really happy to hear that, Heidi. Heidi
Thank
and I had a
you.
conversation last night, and one of the things we were talking about was going to bed late and changing that pattern of early to bed. And you even had caffeine, you even had chocolate at like
Oh, I
7:30
think about
and a high quality chocolate at that.
right.
So that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear
Thank
that.
you. I find you very inspiring, Farah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just wanted to point out, I was telling Andrea that I'm drinking one of the teas that I sent you, and I'm really enjoying it. It's very much a specialty tea. It's a mushroom blend with rose petals in it, and it's really, really lovely. So I know sometimes a tendency is to kind of put things off to the side and be like, oh, I'll do that later. But I encourage you sometime this week to just grab some and try it out.
Thank you.
Monica.
I just wanted to share, I have done something actually that is changing my rhythm. I usually put on something to watch at bedtime and I'm in bed. I know I'm not supposed to do that, but I do it anyway. And I set my timer so that I do it for 10 or 15 minutes and then turn it off. So I did your meditations instead, Farah, before bedtime. 2 nights in a row.
Great.
Yes.
And did it have the same effect as the show that you watch?
Of course not. No.
So you slept better?
I would say I mean, I'm having trouble with my sleep overall right now, but I would say that I definitely felt calmer when I went to sleep. Absolutely. There was a difference. Yeah.
Great. Glad to hear that. Yeah, and you know, I can appreciate we all have our habits that we have and our comforts and our routines, and we're all here just to experiment a little. Experiment a little and support each other in our little experiments and notice that how small changes can make a big difference. So I want to talk today about equanimity, non-reactive awareness, and I want us to practice non-reactive listening. So what we're going to do is we're going to be in breakout rooms of 2. And one of you is going to take 2 minutes to share about a challenge that you're having, but you're going to really pay attention to sharing the story without the tone and emotion that normally accompanies it.
Mm,
So for example, I go to Vancouver often and it's challenging because I'm away from home a lot. And for example, if I think about Vancouver and the dread that I feel that I woke up this morning with, and then I talk about it like, oh, it's so difficult, and then I have to wait at the ferry, and then there's so much driving, and you can hear there's a tone. But my job is to describe that I'm going to Vancouver And there's lots of time on the ferry, and I do lots of driving, but you can hear I don't have the same tone and emotion as I'm talking about it. Can you hear the difference?
Hmm.
So one of you is going to share, you'll have 2 minutes to share a hardship you're going through, and you're going to pay attention to the tone and emotion that you're feeling and try to speak about it in a neutral way, neutral tone. The other one who's listening, your job is to receive without interrupting, without asking any questions, without the responses that normally come up, like, well, have you considered this? Or, I've been through that too. Without those kind of responses that we normally have when we're in dialogue with someone, you're just receiving, listening, not reacting. You're noticing what reactions come up, but you're not voicing them. And if there's silence, together you can just sit in silence until the other person has finished sharing. And when they finish sharing, they'd say, thank you for listening. Okay? And then you can debrief, but it'll be 2 minutes each person, and you'll switch, and I'll let you know the midway mark, and I'll also be participating. Do you have any questions? Great. So this will be our practice in equanimity. So let me see. I'm going to pause the recording. So I want to hear how that felt to practice non-reactive sharing and non-reactive listening.
It was great.
How so?
Um, it it was interesting. It helped me completely think about what I wanted to say, because I guess I wasn't fielding other information, maybe. And as far as listening, again, I felt sort of released of adding, and I could fully listen to Andrea, although it was hard to not nod my head or, sort of emotionally respond in some way. But it was a lovely, helpful, and I'm grateful for our couple minutes together.
Aha. Interesting that it liberates us from fixing and helping.
Mm.
Very, very, very
Oh,
interesting.
wow. Yes, I didn't say, but yes.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you, Heidi. Really profound what you noticed. What about the rest of you? How did it feel?
I think for me, it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, I am talking to the exact right person in this particular moment, right? And just listening, and yeah, it was very interesting.
So it sounds like because Heidi was liberated from fixing and solving the problem and could give her full attention, you felt that.
Mm.
And there's a quality to that, isn't there? Yeah. Really great awareness. Really great awareness. Anyone else?
I've done this with you a little bit before in one of our remember the nonviolence workshop? Anyway, it really helped me back then. So I've tried to incorporate it more, but this is a really good focused practice that we just did. I think it really changes because in that workshop you told us, or we started to like think about not jumping in and not if the person's speaking, just to let them to listen the same way we did today. But I think it's always good to, in this practice too, just to really focus. You gave us really good instructions on that. And I feel like when you're actually jumping in with your own thoughts and your own, like, oh, you could do this, or oh, that, even a comment, I feel like it helps you really to, in this way of stepping away from that, to really listen more deeply. And in fact, like, it seems counterintuitive, but I feel like there's a deeper connection when you're just like just listening, not even absorbing, but just hearing the words rather than jumping in with your own thoughts, or because that's almost a distraction, even though I think we've been brought up to try to be helpful, or I don't even want to get into the sort of gender qualities of trying to fix things, or even like offering empathy, which is very helpful, but then you're kind of interrupting the what you're really listening to, and it gives that other person a sense that you're really hearing them.
Amazing to have noticed the quality of connection when we give our full attention. And it happens so rarely. I mean, even with the ones that we love, we get into habits and ways of relating, and we forget to bring this attentive quality that really deepens connection. Yeah. Oh, Kathy, such a great, great gem that you discovered from this exercise. Kim or Monica?
One thing I was reflecting with Kathy after was that as she was sharing with me, there were things that she had said about an experience she was having that I was feeling quite viscerally, like I'd feel that description like in my body and in my experience, because I had been in that setting before. And throughout it, I found myself being able to not want to jump in and fix and like say helpful things, but I did find it challenging to not just be really feeling a lot of that stuff very deeply. And then when I was trying very hard to talk about my challenge, I was just very much noticing like my body reacting to talking about that. And I know that I'm a pretty animated speaker, so I was also trying very hard to like maintain that. So it was tricky, but also it also felt very like good in my body to listen in that way and to speak in that way, even though at times I was like vibrating almost like with recognition of how that felt like, kind of thing.
Ooh, very good awareness about how emotions really live in the body.
Mhm.
And to feel, that's so, so great. So important. I was just connecting recently with a friend who went on a retreat in Mexico with Norman Fisher, who is a Buddhist practitioner. And he was talking about 4 awarenesses. I'll actually pull it up and see if I can find this email. And these 4 awarenesses, whatever arises within is all a part of practice. And he said, be fully aware. And he mentioned bare awareness. So not awareness with response, with reaction, but bare awareness of body sensations,
Mhm.
emotions and feelings, perspectives and thoughts, and patterns. And what he said is the last one, patterns will reveal themselves if one looks deeply enough. And if one looks deeply enough into patterns, that's where patterns can be broken. So wonderful. I feel really thrilled on how you've responded to this very profound activity. I can say in in the work that I do sometimes I do coaching for couples and I'm trying to mediate conflict or even coaching a person. And it's really a skill that takes a lot of practice, is getting out of myself and becoming a bare witness to the experience that someone else is having. And it can be very profoundly therapeutic and healing to be heard and validated and seen in non-verbal ways. Because verbal ways often come from our mind. But when we're not speaking our thoughts, we are practicing some sense of presencing in our bodies. Great awareness. Wow, so much to this exercise. Monica, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to contribute. You don't have to, there's no obligation, but just in case you wanted to add.
I mean, I think everything that everyone said resonated with me, especially the body piece. But I said to Farah, I told Farah I really had trouble listening to her because I was so full of an emotional piece in my life. And I guess I was running around being so busy this morning, I didn't really have a chance to release it. And now I'm in this beautiful container. So it was difficult. Like tears were just streaming down my eyes, and it was hard. It was really hard to practice equanimity. But I paused with the talking several times, and I breathed, and the breathing helped. That's what helped the most.
Mm.
But I was a terrible listener for far.
I would disagree. I would say you were present as best you were able, and out of that effort, sincere effort, something of yourself came forward.
Thank you.
So yes. Okay. So there are there are many types of meditation. When I studied Tibetan Buddhism, I learned that like you can classify meditation into two different categories. One is with a sacred object, and one is without a sacred object. Okay. Now, by sacred object, I mean you're meditating on loving kindness, you're meditating on compassion, you're meditating on something of a higher quality. Okay. Meditating without a sacred object is something like equanimity, where you are paying attention to what you're experiencing as it is arising and giving space for some things that still live in our field, our body and our energetic field, and might not have been digested and integrated yet. So I can't say enough about how profound the practice of meditation is, whatever kind of meditation you do, whether it's a visualization or a focus on a particular thing, or a guided meditation, or just simply tuning into your breath and body. I would say yoga is in a classical sense, in the way that it's described in all of the texts, yoga prepares us to meditate. It prepares the body physically, because you can't really sit comfortably unless your hips have a certain openness. And that's not related to flexibility, it's related to openness. And you can't really sit comfortably unless you have a certain core strength that can hold up your back and spine without tension. So it prepares the body to sit, but it also prepares the mind to be able to allow what is hidden in the corner of the deep back corners of our mind to come to the surface and to be liberated. And it allows our mind also to learn how to focus. And it uses our body as the focus. So I can't say enough, because the pressures of modern culture and modern society are so strong in pulling us outward and in taking us off balance and in creating urgency. And, you know, I'm reading two really interesting books, and I'm going to share the titles with you and show them what they look like. Did any of you notice the quotes from yesterday's journaling questions? Did anyone remember them or find them really interesting? It's from this book, Rest is Resistance. And it's all about, she talks about free yourself from grind culture. She calls it grind culture. And it's a Black woman activist who really had in her ancestry grandparents and parents who took time to rest. And she learned to nap
Mm.
as a way of sustaining herself in the work that she does. And not only sustaining herself, in order to be able to access, she calls it dream space. The ability to positively use your imagination, the faculties of the imagination in a creative capacity is so important. And we can't get to dream space if we don't know how to relax. And the other book that I'm reading, I'm doing my research, I'm diving deep into the practice of rest. It's called Buddha Standard Time. And he is saying, this is so interesting. He says, fundamentally, Buddhist practice is a practice of using time, or maybe breaking the chains of time, and really understanding how to be present with our lives. And he talks a lot about natural rhythms and how divorced we are from natural cycles in nature. And because we're divorced from natural cycles, and we are we have our foot, or we're in the digital realm, there's an acceleration of time in the modern world that creates this urgency.
Mm.
So, any thoughts on what's resonating or making sense, or any comments you want to make?
Something you said, I hate to be the first one to speak again, but I'm self-conscious about that. I don't know if it's what I've come to understand in the very latter part of my life here, my ADHD or whatever. But Farah, I find I work in an art studio, and like every minute is a new minute. Like sometimes they connect, but sometimes, like, I wonder, I feel like often that I'm on that ride, but also sometimes I'm just so present. I don't know. It's not all connected. Maybe that's part of the digital age, if that's possible. I don't know.
So it sounds like what you're saying is sometimes each moment can be so different than the one before and the one next. And there's no continuity between the moments. Is that what you're referring to?
Interesting. sometimes, yes. Yeah. You know, I might, yeah. And so I wonder if that, how that relates to what you're saying, you know? Um, yeah.
I think, I think that, I think that if we're able to sink deep enough into silence, that we uncover a felt presence of love that is the continuity underneath all the different moments.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That is, yeah, I've been working on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to mention one more thing and then I'll open it up to the group again. You know, I have a beautiful book and it's a small book. I wonder if I can find it just so I can show it to you because it's been my little Bible, so to speak. I'll see if I can find it after the break. And it's a book by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's about this big and it's like 1 inch thick. And each page is a chapter, and each chapter is maybe 2 paragraphs. And in one chapter, he talks about taking a lazy day.
Mm.
This is probably the most prominent Buddhist teacher of our times. Among the top 5 most prominent Buddhist teachers of our lifetime. And he didn't grow up in a privileged background. He grew up in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, where people were setting themselves on fire as a way of protesting what they saw around them. So he didn't, it wasn't a peaceful environment that he was learning how to be a Buddhist in. And he says, there's a saying, don't just sit there, do something. And he says, we have it all wrong.
Mm.
Don't just do something, sit there. And what he's talking about is the agitation and anxiety that comes when we're acting from a very disturbed place or a very agitated place. I believe in action in the world and being an engaged citizen. But what he's saying is, if you sit there first and find your peace and balance within, your actions are going to have a different quality to them and will be much more effective than if we don't take that time to sit and find that balance within us. And he talks about taking a lazy day, and he says, you know what he says about lazy day? Unstructured time, a large amount of unstructured time. How many of us give ourselves the gift of half a day or 1 day a month of unstructured, that we can actually then listen to the impulse? Like, what do I feel like doing? Do I feel like sleeping in? But I feel like eat, you know? Does that make sense? Okay, I want to hear from you now.
Well, I was going to say earlier before we were just talking about sitting first, but how I've noticed we're talking about just these like incursions of sort of like all this digital stuff and like all the noise, you know what I mean? Like in the Grinch, Who Stole Christmas, he talked about that noise, and that was written in the 70s, right? I was talking about the, you know, the music and the celebrations, but I just feel like sometimes there's just so much noise. There's like the TV, and then there's all these problems, and like it's, you know, overwhelming, right? And then I was thinking though, before you mentioned unstructured time, just how like saw some small things. Like when I was little, you know, I just spend the afternoon watching, I don't know, like CTV sports or skiing or, you know, or like watch tennis. I would actually just sit down and watch a match. Now I found, and because I really like tennis, I was trying to watch the Australian Open and I couldn't focus at all. I was like constantly checking my phone. I was like getting up and doing things, like nothing really vital to my life. And I was like, I can't even, these people, it's a big match. I can't even like track the ball, like even because my focus has been so fractured by like the cell phone, and now I'm on Instagram, and now I'm like checking my email, and it's like, why do you need to do any of these things? Like when you were little, you could actually really like, think, oh, this person should do this thing, or like if I was watching tennis, or in the evening, I go down to the school and by myself just hit a ball against, the schoolyard because they had bigger walls for my tennis. And I was happy. I wasn't always like thinking this or that. What's everyone else doing? I got to do this. I've got to read this important book. I could actually just enjoy the time that I was having. And I really miss that. Like, I'm not, everything's so like just being still, but even doing things and being still, like enjoying, what I was doing and just being present, because I feel like a lot of the time I'm really not in that space, even though I want to be. I I don't know. There's just so much going on. So I think it's really important to try and get back to that sense of being present, and also just adding to that, like incorporating moments of stillness. Maybe that will help generate the other thing.
I agree. What you're talking about is contaminated time. Our time has too much that when we have time, we can't even enjoy it and be present with it. You're right that our concentrations are so fractured that, I mean, I even found for myself, Kathy, I totally relate. I used to be able to read a whole newspaper article. I tried to do that a few months ago and I couldn't believe that I couldn't read a whole newspaper article. So you're right. Modern times has really had an impact on our ability to concentrate and focus and maintain that. And I believe that maintaining some protective boundaries around your mental space and also interrupting your punctuating mental space with yoga snacks helps to not allow that urgency to gain too much momentum. Wow, such rich discussion here. Who else would like to say something about what we're talking about?
I'm thinking a lot right now about one of the hardest moments when I was recovering from my broken leg and I couldn't really walk and I had to sit with my leg elevated. I got really caught up in this idea that, oh, I have all of this time where I'm forced to be at home and rest. I'm going to use that in air quotes because like it wasn't really resting. So, oh, but now my schedule's open. I'm not scheduling social things. I should be productive in some way. Like now is the time where I should be learning some sort of massive lesson about rest and recovery and and all of these things. I was just so caught up on this productivity idea that it was making me miserable. Like I kept beating myself up because I was like, well, yeah, I could be knitting a sweater or something and that would be productive and I wouldn't feel like I'm wasting my time just sitting here. And I remember when I was finally able to really shift out of that, I have to be productive because I'm forced to sit here. I was like, no, I'm actually being productive because what I'm focusing on by sitting here is healing this leg. Like, this is a massive thing that's happened to me. But I've been so trained through like my career and through society that if I'm sitting on the couch in any way, I'm wasting my time. And it's been this idea that's just like rest unless it's sleep. That's like not a productive thing. How dare you have a lazy day or a lazy unstructured moment? And yeah, that's coming up for a lot for me here.
So interesting how deeply embedded in our psyche productivity is. and undervalued, how undervalued being is. Yeah. Anyone else?
I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who is here for a couple of years, but has been living in Germany for many years. And she was just talking about, how often she'll invite other families from her child's school program to join her for different events because her husband is back in Germany right now. And then they often say they can't do it. And so she's been uh going out and enjoying like what the city of Ottawa has to offer. And I'm so happy because she's actually doing some really fun stuff with her daughter. Um, but we really touched on this whole idea of, it's just like this work ethic that we have here in North America, as opposed to some of the countries in Europe where they have many more holidays and the schools support that as well, so that families have time together.
Mm.
And yeah, it all ties into the consumeristic culture, because if you want to keep consuming, you have to keep making more money. Like so it's this vicious circle, but it is definitely very, very North American.
North American, there are other cultures too. I'd say some South Asian cultures deeply embedded in a productivity mindset too. But yeah, definitely there are some cultures that value leisure and recreation more, and spirituality that values cultivating states of being, which there's no way around it. You gotta unplug from being productive in order to cultivate those states. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So yeah, really, really interesting to hear your thoughts on this. Anyone else? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a break um, till it turns the hour, which is noon for most of us, and Monica, it would be 3 for you. And then let's come back and we're going to shift our discussion to talking about joy, because it is the other of the 4 infinite thoughts, and we'll have a chance to have a discussion about joy, and hopefully be inspired to feel joy in our bodies and connect with joy in our lives. So see you in a couple minutes. So let's just have a short discussion about joy. As we have this discussion, we're going to practice smiling. So just start to smile and see if you can smile all the way up into the eyes. And we're going to practice listening and talking with a smile and just see what difference it makes. I remember I was teaching a workshop in Vancouver at Open Door Yoga. And it was this Heart of Conflict series that is about conflict resolution. And one of the students said, Farah, can you teach a workshop about assertiveness and boundaries? And I thought, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, I'll think about that. And she said, you're the only person I know who can set a boundary with a smile.
Mm.
And, it's so interesting to me how you can deliver hard information with a facial gesture that softens it and what people actually take. I'll give you another example of smiling. I was invited to do an interview about laughter yoga on the radio, and it was in French, and I'm not even that great in French, and I was so nervous about the interview. And I came out and I said, how did it go? I was thinking about all the grammatical mistakes I made. And he said, it's great. You could hear you smiling.
Oh,
I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So we're going to continue to practice smiling. Your cheeks are going to get a little bit tired. I know that that's going to be the case. Sometimes we're not used to smiling as much. And I want each of us to share a joyful moment from last year or from the last few weeks or from a joyful moment that really stands out. And as you share your joyful moment, you're going to really smile. Who wants to go first? Andrea. Unmute, please. And not only is Andrea going to smile, we're also going to smile back at her as we listen and nod.
So we live very close to the beach, and we hadn't been to the beach for a while because the weather was kind of gross. And last week we went down and just sat at the beach, and it was amazing. Like, you realize how much you miss just that environment and that escape. So it was a very joyful moment.
And I even see the word joy just above you in your yoga room.
It is, yes, my favorite word.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for sharing. I was watching all of you listening and smiling. What beautiful faces to share with. Thank you. Just close your eyes for a moment. Keep smiling and just notice what you're feeling on the inside. Open your eyes, big smile. Who's next in sharing a joyful memory?
Well, I can go. Sometimes I think the most joyful things can just be every day, but I couldn't think of, like just like waking up with my little canine. Here she is.
oh,
See? That's why I often get up late, because she's just like so funny in the morning. But I will share that last year my nephew got married, and I think he's 25. And so that was really joyful. I don't always get along that well with my family, but the whole day was for him and his fiance Jasmine. And it was really great to meet her family. And it was a beautiful day, Toronto, not too hot. Everyone, like, because weddings can be surprisingly tense. But I was like, you're not getting married, although I did arrange the flowers. Anyhow, everything was beautiful. The weather was good. All of my mom, like all of our family was there. We are a small family. Well, not quite all my cousins, but like about 25 of us. It was a small wedding. And yeah, I just got to meet Jasmine's mother, Pansy, who's really funny. And her family's Chinese. So I did a tea ceremony, learned some new traditions, and it was just beautiful. My father is 92 and he was there for his grandson, and my mom. I had to tell my mother it wasn't her day, but other than that, it was just very, very joyful and a beautiful like family. And my niece, who's 14 now, well, 13, she lives in Toronto and she was a bridesmaid, and my other niece, who's 20, it was just beautiful. It was lovely.
Wow, sounds like a very happy family moment and experience. Yeah, beautiful. Take a moment, smile, think of that memory that Kathy described for us, and just take a few moments to dwell in a happy family memory. Open the eyes. Who's next? Who wants to share a joyful memory or moment?
okay, I'll go. So last year, my dad was in the last truly days of his life. And, sitting there cuddling with my dad, and I'm smelling him. I was like, Dad, you smell so good. I forgot to add, he hasn't said a full sentence in maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Full, like, at least they're very rare. And so I'm smelling my dad. Dad, you smell so good. And he says, nobody's ever told me that before. And I was like, my dad, he's just inspiring to the last. He always with the zoom, the funny. And that brings me joy. Whenever I think about that, I think about my dad. So thank you for bringing that back for me.
Oh, what a beautiful memory. What a beautiful memory. Thank you for sharing, Heidi.
Thank you.
Monica?
Well, that one brought joyous tears to my eyes. Thank you. I have a memory of meeting my great nephew who came from Switzerland with my niece and her husband last summer. And I remember arriving and feeling like my back was sore, and I was not in the greatest of spaces, but I was still excited to meet him. And I thought, yeah, I didn't think that I'd be able to hold him that long. And I picked him up and I couldn't put him down. All my body pain went away. I was so happy to be connecting with this wonderful little soul. And I held him like for a good long time. So I'll never forget that. That was a really joyous moment for me.
That's so precious.
So lovely.
Oh, so precious. I can just imagine this aura of the two of you together. How beautiful. Kim, do you feel ready?
I think so. I oh, I'm actually like a little bit I'm welling up because I'm thinking about all these moments of joy, and like other folks' memories are triggering a lot of beautiful moments for me. So I think the one that I'm gonna land on. In the last year, I got a new tattoo. I don't know if you can see. I'm gonna try to show it to you. So it's on my forearm. Oh, the lighting is terrible. Anyway, it is of a bleeding heart plant.
Oh,
So my baba, my grandma, passed away in 2019, and I wanted to get a memorial tattoo to her. And so this tattoo, not only is it beautiful, and I'm so pleased with the way the artist put it together, it brings me joy every time I see it, but it also reminds me of the first plant that I learned to identify was a bleeding heart because my baba had it in her garden. And so it always makes me think of my baba's garden. And then when I first moved out here to Vancouver, I didn't know that bleeding hearts grew wild here. Like they're a native species to the coast. And I remember hiking and seeing one on a hike on the North Shore, and just like my heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest because it felt like in that moment I had found home in ways that I hadn't felt, I think, outside of like being in my baba's garden on the prairies. So this is a full joy
yeah.
for me.
Wow, how beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful way to remember your Baba. You know, I'm going to continue with this family theme. I've been away in Vancouver a lot, and the amazing thing is that it's given my husband and his mom time to bond. Usually I take her out for errands and shopping, but because I'm not here, my husband is taking her out for errands and shopping, and they've been bonding and they've been having deep conversations, and they've been connecting in ways that are deeper than previously. And to just to know, sometimes we go through a difficult time, but simultaneously, somewhere in another corner of our life, there's like a little flower growing. And if we just shift our gaze and look to that, we're like, wow, simultaneously at the same time, something beautiful is happening. And it just makes my heart so full to know that they're connecting. I feel like there's something so profound when we can make peace with our family. So, how has it felt to be smiling throughout all these and reliving joyful memories?
It's definitely changing my mood. I arrived really like just so downcast, and I thought, man, I am such a Debbie Downer for this group today, and self-criticism and everything. And in the beginning, I was just faking the smile, or I was forcing practicing it. And but a lot has shifted listening to all the beautiful.
Yes, just if you can unmute yourself, it got muted, but we just didn't capture the
sorry.
last part.
Oh, just that I'm grateful for all the beautiful stories that everyone shared. That's really helped me in this moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. That's, really profound to hear about how it can shift us just if we shift our focus. Anyone else?
Monica, I can absolutely relate to what you're saying. I've found January and the beginning of February filled with challenges. And just this exercise makes you realize you just have to think about some of those joyful moments. And, there's a lot of very good. You can get caught up in the negativity of things, but it's been a great exercise to make me just change my mindset a bit.
Great. Anyone else?
I found for me that it's helped me feel a lot more present and grounded than when I came into this morning. And even just before we started this, I found myself looking over at one side of my desk and thinking, oh, I really need to dust. And then like seeing all of these things and trying really hard to be present, but like kept finding myself pulled out. And that has just, yeah, just really pulled me in a way that I wasn't able to achieve before we started sharing. So thank you, everyone.
Beautiful. I'm going to grab something just to show you about something that's been very helpful to me lately. So give me a sec.
Ladies, I'm sorry, I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties over here. Can't figure out how to mute or whatever. So sorry if I'm jittery.
So, many of us may have had a gratitude practice. Right now, I found as I went through menopause, there were doubts and insecurities that arose within me that were challenging. And so what I did, what I've done is, we all have like thank you letters and little notes that we receive from friends, birthday cards or things like that. And I gathered them into a little box here. And sometimes what I do is I'll pick up a card and I'll read it. And it brings me to tears. to revisit special memories and moments. You know, when people took the time to write a handwritten letter or a handwritten card, and to remember how much I'm loved and cared for. And I think most of you, I'm not sure, Kim, if it arrived in your package, but most of you got 2 cards, 2 letters. You got it. Good. Then it was Jackie who didn't get it. Great. Some of you got 1, some of you might have gotten 2. Those letters, you know, I learned this practice from the Thich Nhat Hanh community, and it is the practice of writing a love letter. And you can write a love letter to yourself, or you can write a love letter to someone else, or you can just write a letter where you remember joyful moments. You know, you write like a few phrases about joyful moments, and it's a reminder for you when you're kind of stuck in the dump of a grumpy mood, and then you pick it up and you read it. And let me tell you, if you really take the time to write yourself a beautiful letter or note, it can really help. So that is part of my joy practice these days. It's a little different than my gratitude practice, but I'm finding it very, very effective. And another way that you can do this is every day. This is something I recommended to a student of mine. Buy a beautiful box. Beautiful. Could be like a wood carved box or some kind of beautiful box. And buy some nice paper, and every day take a couple minutes to write a beautiful moment that made you smile and put it in your box. And then one day you read those. And let me tell you, it will uplift you in ways that you can't imagine. And part of this practice is based in a practice called dwelling. It is a practice I learned when I interviewed Rick Hansen, who wrote the book, The Buddha's Brain, Rewiring the Brain for Happiness. And he talks about the importance of dwelling in positive moments, not recalling them mentally, dwelling in them. Because our brain is from an evolutionary perspective, it's wired to remember negative experiences more than positive ones. So part of what's important in spiritual practice is to dwell in uplifting positive memories to rewire and reshape the brain. So I will include that podcast for those of you who might want to listen. I'll include it maybe tomorrow or something like that. And I think you got some chocolate recipes today, did you? No?
I clicked on the link, but it took me to the schedule.
Oh, okay.
Unless it was attached and I missed it, but
No, that might, I wasn't sure if that works. So thank you for letting me know. I will send it to you all manually. And I'll do that right now to send you the page of chocolate recipes. If you feel inspired, I like to use every opportunity and excuse I can to eat good chocolate and eat healthy chocolate. So that's just, this is just my occasion to do that. And wanted to share with you some of my favorite chocolate recipes.
Farah, did you find the book that you were gonna you mentioned the book by Thich Nhat Hanh?
Oh, let's see if I can find it thank you. I will look right now. Aha, I know where it is. Yes. Oops, give me a sec.
How to relax. Great.
Look, it's like as big
I
as
like
my
that
hand.
illustration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, and the It's so good. Like
Yeah, it's
one
perfect.
paragraph, one chapter.
That's great.
Oh, it's absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Being Peace is the chapter I was talking about, where he says, people sometimes say, don't just sit there, do something, but we have to reverse that statement to say, don't just do something, sit there. In order to be in such a way that peace, understanding, and compassion are possible. So we actually have to sit and do nothing for the possibility of peace, understanding, and compassion. Anyways, thank you for reminding me. Any last, I decided I would end today's session at 12:30 because we're a small group to give you more unstructured time for yourself. Any final words before we end our workshop today?
This is just it's not an exciting question, but like what makes, like, I know that good chocolate can be like, is it just dark chocolate? What makes a more healthy chocolate a vote? Obviously like not cheap chocolate, but like what is the components of the chocolate that you sent that makes it more better?
Healthy?
Healthy is what I said.
Okay, so if you look at the ingredients are cacao, cane sugar, raspberry. 3 ingredients. So, and the cacao is actually, I was saying to Heidi, it's of a very high quality cacao. In Ecuador, they have classifications for cacao, and it's the highest quality cacao. So I would say what differentiates good chocolate from bad chocolate is preservatives, ingredients, quality of cacao, how it's made. The woman who makes this, Bridget Longshore, puts a lot of love into her chocolate. And so the ingredients and the way that it's made and the people who make it, those all make a difference in the quality. Any other final questions or comments?
I'm
I
grateful
just-
for this experience, Farah. Sorry, Monica.
I was just about to say the same thing. I'm so grateful, and I feel like now I'm really starting my day at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Never too late to start. I'm so glad that I'm so glad you made the decision to come, Monica. I'm so glad you came the decision to come. I'm so grateful that all of you came. Anyone else want to say anything before we move into the rest of our day? Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon. I may see some of you tonight for Yoga Nidra practice. If you don't want to come, there's a short version you can do on your own. Okay, thanks everyone.